Hi, you're on the Bible Forum. I'm Warren Sprouse. This is September 6th. We are well into September, heading toward election time in November. Are you signed up to receive our weekly rundown of topics? I got a feeling I didn't do that this week. I had a loyal viewer who wrote to me today and said, was there going to be a Bible? I didn't get it. I don't remember. It's been a rough couple of weeks for me. So I just sent it out. So I hope you did get it. But if you'd like to have that, sign up. Just send me an email. Send it to thebibleforum@gmail.com. That'll give me your email address. And I promise you don't get junk. You just get information on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, whenever the material is finalized and you know what the program's going to be about. We have a world in turmoil. And I'm going to try to explain to you something about what that means. To begin with, we have a case in point from Lila Rose, August 24th, 2020. Rose founded the pro-life organization Live Action. And she tweeted out this week, President Trump can defund Planned Parenthood by executive order. It's past time to stop pouring millions of taxpayer dollars into a corporation that slaughters 900 children every day. Defund these atrocities. You can find her at Defund Planned Parenthood at Real Donald Trump. I don't think that's her address. Her address is at Lila Grace Rose. Lila Rose at Lila Grace Rose. The campaign then appeared to update its 50-point list of last weekend, adding under the heading Defend American Values the following. Continue nominating constitutionalist Supreme Court and lower court judges. Protect unborn life through every means available. Defend the freedom of religious believers and organizations. Support the exercise of Second Amendment rights. His campaign, concluding with, quote, President Trump's boundless optimism and certainty in America's greatness is reflected in his second-term goals and stands in stark contrast to the gloomy vision of America projected by Joe Biden and the Democrats. I would add that they know more than I do. I have no idea what Joe Biden and the Democrats stand for at this point, except they're against Trump. If Trump's for it, they're against it. If the guys out in the street, the mobs, are demonstrating for something, they're for that. They're not for the violence. They're not for all the killing and all the nonsense that goes along with it, but they understand. They have yet to put forward any concrete plan for the future under Biden. What does it say when a publicly ungodly president fights harder for God and his principles than do a growing number of pastors? Not to mention the huge number of churchgoers. I believe God is giving the United States one more chance. I also believe that Satan is deceiving us all. And something really bad may just be coming. And I believe this man, Donald Trump, is a pragmatist. That he's going to go with what works. That's what he's always done, and that's what he's willing to do. He does not have the shame that so many men of his level have. He can tell you one thing today, he can tell you the opposite tomorrow. And he believes both of them. When he said it, he believed that's what it was, and that's what it would take, and he's definitive, and that's all there is to it. And then information comes about, and he realizes that's not the way it is. He's just as strong the other way. And then people give him grief. I don't give him grief. I just wonder, how do you function like that? But he's done this for 40 years in business successfully. And in the first 3 years of his presidency here, he was successful. He put everybody back to work. Everybody who could or would was working. He put America back on the map. It didn't take forever. It didn't take a lot. On the other side, we've got Joe Biden. Joe Biden met with, I assume it's a Roman Catholic priest. He's only referred to as Father Jacob Blake, the man shot by police. Oh, no, I take that back. It's the father of Jacob Blake. Jacob Blake is the guy that got shot by police in Kenosha, Wisconsin, a couple weeks ago. And so he is there with the grieving father, who is justifiably upset and justifiably angry. His son is being characterized as one who was shot down by police unnecessarily. A man, his wife calling the police because of his aggressive behavior. A man shrugging off the tasers being used against him by the police, refusing to obey police instructions. A man deliberately walking to his car in defiance of the police, away from them, opening the door where a knife lay on the floor of the car, picking up that knife, something certainly not necessary if he's simply going to get in the car and drive away. The officer, filled now with adrenaline and fear, responding in the way he was trained. Was he trained to kill? No. He was trained to stop the otherwise unstoppable before an innocent person is killed or seriously injured, and maybe himself. No one who wasn't there, no one who hasn't been in this sort of circumstance has the slightest idea what this officer faced or what he felt. And now, no one, except the police and the judge, know what is the proper legal response. But we all have an opinion, don't we? Jumping into this story was a former New York State Assemblyman. His name is Dov Hikind. Hikind called Biden's behavior hypocrisy. Why? Because Blake's father is a follower of Louis Farrakhan. You know Louis Farrakhan, right? He's the man who spreads hate against white people. He's the man who spreads hate against Jews and anyone else who doesn't share his religious/political views. And he does this for all the world to see and to hear. Hikind's social media posts evince support for the Nation of Islam, for the hate preacher Louis Farrakhan, along with other racist sentiments, including some directed toward black people. It's more than likely his son grew up in this environment. Hikind was on Fox News this past Thursday saying, quote, Blake Sr., who is a follower of Louis Farrakhan, spreading his hate on social media to millions of people. Someone who follows Farrakhan, the #1 anti-Semite in this country, someone who preaches hate for the Jewish people and white people who don't agree with him, and now Blake Sr., who is a follower of Louis Farrakhan, spreading his hate on social media to millions of people. And all of this before any judge, before any jury gets to hear any of the evidence. A trained professional living with the reality of killing people, hoping he will get a fair hearing by his peers and by the law. That's how we define police officers today. And increasingly you have to wonder why. Why police officers would want to put themselves and their families through any of this. In Columbus, Georgia, recently, Javon Hatchett stabbed an AutoZone employee. He stabbed the man 7 times after watching Facebook videos of police shootings. Hatchett told the detective that he chose a white man at random, stabbing him in the neck when he turned his back to help him at the store. The attacker apparently was whipped into a murderous frenzy by the race-baiting coverage of recent police incidents, which lately have turned into black and white issues. Literally, with the media, every injury or death of a black man is an encounter with law enforcement and is now considered unjustified and racially motivated. You're a police officer? Watch your back. Los Angeles County is terminating 45-year-old parking lot lease with Grace Community Church. I told you about this last week. It's now in the courts, so it's nothing really is happening. But they've given the congregation 30 days to vacate the space in an action the church's supporters say is retaliation for recent defiance of COVID-19 health restrictions. The county is clearly retaliating against Grace Community Church for simply exercising their constitutionally protected right to hold church and challenging an unreasonable, unlawful health order. This according to Jenna Ellis, special counsel at the Thomas More Society, which is representing the church. She said, "In America, we have a judicial system to ensure that the executive branch does not abuse its power. And Grace Community Church has every right to be heard without fear of reprisal. The issue is being litigated through the courts, and this alone should keep the county from retaliating. The Democrats' message to Americans is clear. If you don't bow down to every whim of tyranny, the government will come after you." Does anybody remember a fellow by the name of Krauthammer? A steady fixture on Fox News up until the day practically that he died. But he wrote at some point a little statement on how it works. Trump issues an immigration executive order. In response, Organizing for Action calls for protests. Pro-immigrant groups issue condemning statements. ACLU lawyers file lawsuits in jurisdictions where activist judges obstruct the laws. Volunteers are called to protest at airports and town hall meetings. The leftist media springs into action in support of these activities. The Twitter sphere lights up with social media. And surprise, violence follows. All this happens from the ex-president's signal that he is heartened by the protests. Since the pandemic began, the suburbs around New York City, from New Jersey to Westchester County to Connecticut to Long Island, have been experiencing enormous demand for homes of all prices. A surge that is unlike any in recent memory, according to officials, according to real estate agents, and according to residents. The New York Post wrote that the city surpassed 1,000 shootings for the year last Sunday. That according to NYPD data, which also shows an average of nearly 10 people falling victim to gun violence every single day over the last 4 weeks. With only 4 more months left in 2020, New York City logged 1,004 shootings as of August 30th. Last year, there had been just 537 by that same time. According to the American Worldview Inventory 2020, 98% of American adults who choose socialism over capitalism are opposed to a biblical worldview. Are you shocked? I'm shocked. That's sarcasm. Conversely, 83% of people who do hold to a biblical worldview prefer capitalism instead of socialism. 78% are consistently conservative. Additionally, 80% of people who uphold a biblical worldview are fiscally conservative, and 91% support conservative social policies. Furthermore, 89% oppose abortion based on clear biblical teaching, and 83% endorse a limited view of the size and scope of government. On the other hand, only 5% of Americans with a biblical worldview are, quote, likely to adopt liberal views on physical, social, and government issues. The article said physical. I'm betting they mean fiscal. This analysis also found that those without a biblical worldview are more likely to support liberal fiscal and social policies, 26 to 40% respectively. Now, regarding the Bible's stance on abortion, 38% of Americans who reject a biblical worldview still do not believe the Bible is unambiguous on the subject. This means they believe the Bible is clear that ending a human life is murder. Of course, the abortionists don't believe that mass of tissue residing in the woman's womb is really a person, that it's merely a tumor, an anomaly, or something of the sort. But it's a tumor that magically becomes a person upon exiting the mother's womb. But even then, we have people who will kill that child. Additionally, 26% prefer a more liberal, expansive view of government. According to a statement by George Barna, the author of the survey, the 2020 election is not about personalities. It's not about the various parties involved. It's not even about politics. It's an election to determine the dominant worldview in America. It's about values. Arizona Christian University President Len Munsil echoed this sentiment, saying, "This study provides further evidence that we are in the midst of a war of worldviews. The biblical worldview that enabled our nation to achieve levels of peace, prosperity, and justice unprecedented in human history is under assault by an ideology that devalues innocent life and threatens religious and economic liberty." Did you know we have the highest trade deficit today that we've ever had since World War II? The Congressional Budget Office said just this past Wednesday that the federal debt held by the public is projected to reach or exceed 100% of the U.S. gross domestic product. This is the broadest measure of U.S. economic output in the fiscal year that begins October 1st. That would put the U.S. in the company of a handful of nations with debt loads that exceed their economies, including Japan, Italy, and Greece. This year, the ratio is expected to be 98%. That's also the highest since World War II. And where unemployment is concerned, despite the challenges, despite the media telling us how bad everything is, the unemployment numbers keep going down. With the exception of areas of the country that are predominantly run by Democrat mayors or governors, the economy is starting to rebound. Americans are going back to work. In fact, in August, last month, the economy added almost 1.4 million jobs, a sign that things were looking up. And one of those who notices is one of former President Obama's economic advisors. His name is Jason Furman. He said, and I quote, "In rough terms, 3 million jobs were created this month, according to the household survey. All those jobs are people returning from temporary layoffs, and that's good news. That's the healing. That's the reopening." 8.4% of unemployment is certainly lower than he thought we would get at this point in the summer, Furman explained. It's lower than even I thought it would be at the end of the year. Now keep in mind, Obama's unemployment rate bottomed out at 6.6. Trump's unemployment rate before coronavirus was 3.6. And 3.6 is considered as good as it can get. Everyone who is able to work is. I'm convinced the Democrats took note of those numbers. That's why we have a coronavirus epidemic shutting us down. The epidemic would have happened anyway. We've had epidemics before. This is the first time we shut the country and the world down. And the result, so far, corona deaths in this country are not anywhere near what we're being told. It's right now somewhere in the 190,000 range. All the other deaths, these people had the coronavirus, but they had contributing factors, lung issues and other kinds of physical things that they couldn't recover from. A vast majority of them were older. Media is not being honest with us. How do you make a decision if you don't have honest facts? Wait a minute. That's the point, isn't it? When we come back, we'll take a look at the world in turmoil. Stay tuned.